So here for identifying corresponding parts and congruence statement practice. We've got some triangles here, and for each pair of triangles, we are asked to mark the corresponding parts and write congruence statements for each pair of sides and each pair of angles. And so you can use patty paper if it's difficult for you to see which parts are corresponding. For this first one, for me, it's pretty easy to see which ones are corresponding, so I'm not going to use patty paper on any of these, honestly, because I obviously can't show that on the iPad. So what I will show is that I'm going to mark side AB congruent to side DE. Side BC is my next side, so I will use 2 hash marks. It's congruent to FE. And then lastly, my third side, I will use 3 hash marks, and that demonstrates that those sides are congruent. Also, I need to make sure that I mark my angles. So my angles I will mark not with hash marks, but with arcs. And so angle C is congruent or corresponds to angle F. This looks like a right triangle, but I don't know, so I can't put the box there. I need to put an arc, and your book likes to use multiple arcs. So I will do that for this first one. I will show another method for the next one. So angle A corresponds to angle D. And then lastly, angle B would need 3 marks because it is the third angle, and that corresponds to angle E. We are also asked to make congruence statements about this. I'm going to pause the video while I make those congruent statements, and I'll be back with them completed. So everyone, I'm back. I have made congruent statements. I've got that side AB is congruent to DE, and you can read through those. I am also going to go ahead and make statements about equality statements about the size of these, the measure of these sides and the measure of these angles for this problem. So I have also completed making statements about the measure. You'll notice that for statements about measure, we use an equal sign, not a congruence symbol. And I basically just repeated all of my congruence statements, replaced the congruent symbol with an equal sign, and indicated that I was referencing the measure of those sides or the measure of those angles as opposed to the angles or the sides themselves. On to number 4. And for number 4, I'll go through a similar process, everyone. This time with the angles, I will do it differently and show the alternative method. So I'll start with side PN. It looks like PN is congruent to YZ or corresponds to YZ. Then I've got MN corresponding to XY. And then lastly, MP corresponding to XZ. So as you can see, again, we use basically just a different number of hash marks to indicate the different angles. And this time I am going to do a different method of identifying these angles. And so one of the things that I like to do, it saves a little bit of space, is to put the arc and then put a slash in there like I just did. So those will be angle 1, if we want to think about it that way. This next one will be angle 2, so there'll be 2 slash marks in there. And then this last one will be angle 3. I will put 3 slash marks in there. And so we can see the parts of those triangles that are congruent, everyone. I'm going to pause while I make my congruence statements as I did last time, and I will be back. So I have got my congruence statements complete. I think it is important to recognize that you could write these down in any order, and you could reverse them. Like what I have on the right could be on the left, and so forth. Order does not matter when we are making a comparison like this. So those are the congruent statements that I have. I will also do the equality statements for the measure here as well. And then we have the comparison of the measures as well. For the next 2 problems, I think I will just write congruence statements, and I hope that you're able to recognize that if you wanted to write statements about the equality of the measures, you could just change these to have an equal sign and put an M for measure in front of the next piece there. So with that, everyone, I'll leave this here for a moment. You can pause if you need to, and I'm going to move on. Problem 5 and 6 brings more of the same. I do see right off the bat that I can clearly identify these sides here as being congruent, side CM and SQ. It looks to me like side MP is congruent to side WQ, and that side CP is congruent to side WS. And then again with my angles, I think I will use my hash mark method here just because it saves room. Angle C would be congruent to angle S. Angle M would be congruent to angle Q. And angle P would be congruent to angle W. It's difficult to fit 3 hash marks in on that small one. Maybe I should have done them in a different order. At any rate, everyone, I will have congruence statements in a moment. And magically, it's complete. So we have the congruence statements, and I did go ahead and do the equality of measure statements as well. So that's it for number 5. We're on to number 6. So if we look at number 6, sometimes it's a little bit difficult to see which are the corresponding parts, and so again, using patty paper is a great way to help you figure that out if that's something you're trying to wrestle with. And so I do see that I've got a short side there and a short side there. That's my first side. My next longest side is going to be that one. And it doesn't matter, even though this is my next longest side, I could name it side 3. That has no difference whatsoever. The number doesn't have to match the shortest, middle, and the longest. And what we've got next, everyone, is I've got angle Q. Corresponds to angle R. No, it doesn't, does it? No, it does not. Angle Q corresponds to angle T. We have a QT. Pretty sick. Okay. Angle S does correspond to angle P. And angle R does correspond to angle N. So for number 6, I'll be back with congruent statements and equality statements in a moment. And so there I've got all my corresponding or congruent statements and equality statements as well. That's it for this assignment. I hope this was helpful, and I hope you have an awesome day.